Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samuel64, and welcome back to the RoboCast. I'm joined alongside
Anderson 9132, the Robot Wars Girl. I'm kidding. I'm Steve the American Killjoy.
It's a blatant lie. Anderson's currently on holiday in Germany.
Yes, he is.
How very dare he miss out on this excellent moment? We have got some cover for him though. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Jevan Woodrow from World of Woodrow, and I am your Anderson 9132 replacement service.
Welcome, Jevan. It's about damn time you came on this
Yes.
thing. It's about damn time.
This feels really weird.
The Keemstar of the Robot Wars community.
It feels like I'm listening to the podcast, and I'm in the podcast.
It's so strange. It's so strange. And we have a guest for this week's episode. Introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, I'm Joe. I make Bugglebots and I fight robots with Sam.
Yes.
And I'm a big fan of the podcast.
Oh, you did too
Big
kind.
fan of World of Woodrow, so it's an honour to be amongst such brilliant people.
Stop it.
It's an honour to have you with us. I mean, we've talked about doing a Bugglebots podcast for a long time. Obviously, last year we kind of got caught off guard, and it was like it wasn't long after BattleBots came out, if I remember correct, or finished, if I remember correctly. We were just kind of like, do you know what? Let's just not do this again because it's just so much effort to do.
Well,
But,
BattleBots take the podcast. It takes a lot out of us.
It does.
It's every week. He has to set it up. I mean, I just show up. I don't know what. I mean, Sam, you're like the MVP of this podcast, honestly, and getting everybody where they're supposed to be and yelling at us and telling us what we have to do. So
It's hard.
appreciate it.
Sam and I share the same pains of just
Yeah.
furious editing for deadlines.
Yeah, it's the struggle's
Extreme
real.
anxiety.
The struggle's real. The struggle's real. But we are here to discuss Bugglebots finally, the entirety of season 1. From what I remember, I enjoyed season 1 of Bugglebots. It was very different to what you're kind of used to with your robot combat shows, obviously, because the machines are much smaller. I would come to you, Joe, first of all. Where did the idea come from? Why Bugglebots? Everyone asks when, but why?
So, my understanding of it, I wasn't there at the very, very beginning. The very, very beginning was Robot Wars got cancelled, which obviously was a very sad moment to a lot of people. But I believe Ben, who was just a big fan of it, Ben Hassan, he saw, I think Tim wrote a status about it saying, "Don't be sad, the live team's awesome." And Ben wasn't involved in the live team at the time, but he was involved in the kind of the meme community, the internet community around it. And I think he was like, "Oh, you know what? I think we can do our own show." And I think he started talking to Sarah, who's one of the presenters on the show now, about what's the feasibility of doing a show. And then Sarah dropped me a message being like, "You seem to have venues for events. How do you do that?" And I was like, "Well, I leech off a university, so
The best way to do it.
And with a few more conversations, they hadn't really got a film crew or so the means to make it into a show, I guess. Then you had to kind of get a Beatle event going. But I had a bit of experience with film stuff, not much, but I've done a couple of music videos. It's literally about it, my experience. But
So Bugglebots was a lot of learning on the job from what I'm gaining here.
yeah, essentially it was a mixture of I did outweights in my university, and we did little interviews beforehand, and I sort of stole that style combined with pretty much anyone in the community I knew who was capable with a camera or with editing software.
I remember Sarah asking me to come help, and I couldn't do it because I couldn't get it off work, which really made me sad.
Yeah, you want to be one of our production runners?
Yeah,
all the robots and stuff.
I was going to come down, but I couldn't do it.
But the film crew are literally a bunch of people piled together in a Facebook group as soon as Robot Wars got cancelled, called like Good Hit Productions or something. I can't remember what it was. It didn't quite work out. It was a bunch of ideas that didn't quite come to fruition. But in there was this guy Rob Webb, who's now one of my best mates, who does all the visuals for the show. He literally had some After Effects skills, doing cool fire and stuff. I was like, that's cool. Let's grab him. And then there was this guy Stephen Atwell who made the documentary on YouTube called Fighting Spirit. I don't know if you've seen that.
It's the one. I think they interviewed us, which is
Yes,
Yeah.
Flamingo's in that video,
Yeah.
joining Flamingo, and
Yeah.
that was your first event, so it's a
Yeah.
really good capturing of your first event
Yeah.
experience.
absolutely.
But he's probably the most, him and there's another guy as well called Stuart, who are both film students. So we basically used all of their gear and experience. And then Jerome, who had a load of film gear from doing sort of similar stuff in Holland. And am I forgetting someone else? And my friend Phil and Simon, who are just friends from uni that had just shot music videos with me. So literally just anyone I knew who had a camera, I grabbed and said, come to this lecture theatre in Bristol. We're going to make a film.
It just sounds like a logistical nightmare. It really does.
Well, it was a literal sort of like we don't really know how this is going to work. We know what a Beetle arena looks like. I'd been to UE. I'd done one Beetle event at that point. So the thing we did to sort of prepare for it was we got Shane, who's the arena provider, to do an event with us with Bristol Bot Builders in the July beforehand.
Yep.
And we invited most of the people we sort of thought might come and compete, and tested out a few cameras and tested out the format as well. We secretly did the format of Bugglebots at a Bristol Bot Builders event to see, does this format actually really work? And the answer was, yeah, pretty much. It's basically the Robot Wars Series 10 format, because we loved how...
It was so good. It was so good.
It really worked really well. It got you to see robots more than once. It gave teams a chance, if they had a little screw up in their first fight, to go back, fix it, and come back better. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I hate the concept of you do one fight and you're gone. Like,
yeah,
I want to get to know you've got the effort of getting a robot working in the arena, which is the hardest part. Like, so you should definitely give people more than one chance.
I mean, look at Nuts 2 in Series 9, for example. You know, it was there for 10 seconds and died, and then
exactly.
Yeah, you saw it the next year, and it was amazing. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, give people another chance, and who knows, they might come third somehow. Like.
Yeah, we'll get to him later.
Like, I'm so glad Robot Wars ended with Nuts coming that high up. It's
Yeah,
not like
it's just so
sweet ending. Like,
yeah, it's just so strange. How
yeah,
how
we're a
peculiar.
bit biased, but you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we love the format. I think that we wanted to see more of that. And we love beetle weights because they have the same sort of style and impacts as heavyweights and featherweights. This sort of big oof that you don't quite get with AM weights.
Right.
But they're obviously a lot cheaper and a lot easier to transport. So the perks of them being cheaper has meant a lot more people could enter.
Yes.
And the other benefit was we actually get more international competitors and slight what's the word? I can't words today. Sorry, I've been editing too much. Slight sneaky bit. We've got a lot of international competitors next season, even more than the first season. And I think we couldn't, if we were doing a heavyweight show, we couldn't probably do that. Like, not that we could afford to do a heavyweight show.
The logistics would just be a nightmare. I can't imagine how BattleBots does it.
Exactly. Well, they have to. Yeah, there's this ridiculous weeks in advance shipping process, and I happen to know the back end of that is probably 20 times the budget of our entire show.
These you can bring these in a shoulder bag, basically.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, it's no big deal.
Like Alex Mordew just rocks up with a wheelie, suitcase. He took it around the pub afterwards. So basically saw music in the pub crawl.
He probably was. Dear me. You know, it is. You know, it's so amazing how, like, you know, because obviously we've talked about, you know, the robots before, you know, you know, the modern shows, and we've talked about, you know, the teams and how they put things together and whatever. You know, we haven't actually talked about the production of the show itself. We never had, you know, that kind of level of, you know, people to talk to, really. It's very interesting to hear it from, like, you know, it's, you know, someone who's actually making the program that you're watching. It's very kind of, there's a lot of insight you can get from that. You know, it's very much different to what you get from, say, someone who's building to compete. It's a different kind of stress, if you like.
But the thing I appreciate most, as well as obviously it's a very much community show, like everyone who's in the team, no one's getting paid for this. We're all doing it because we love the sport. But we're all Roboteers at heart, so the commentators are, you know, have Roboteers. Well, Stephen makes his own show as well.
Exactly.
So it's a very well-established Roboteer. The hosts are very much involved in the scene, and all the film crew are. So, like, we're as much part of being Roboteers as film crew, and I think while the show's not going to be that quality of a TV show, hopefully the passion comes across that we are a show for Roboteers by Roboteers.
It's a show by fans for fans. You know, it's you know, it is, you know, and like, for what it's worth, you know, considering you had a budget of, I think it was pretty much nothing, wasn't it, for the first season, and you know, the fact that you managed to put it all together and it came out looking so nice is a testament to all you guys. So, you know, it's just a great pleasure to to actually thank you for that as well. It's wonderful.
Oh, thanks, man. The budget was literally, I think we paid the petrol for all the people who needed to get their stuff there in terms of the crew and the arena and stuff. And I think that was literally it. It was literally just scrounging and doing stuff on the cheap, which is great. But yeah, somehow this, I gotta say, I mean, I'm biased again, and I'm a bit blind to it now after editing for the last 5 months. But I think this next season looks a bit better. Like there's no more blue. I don't know if you'll see in the first season. There's a lot of blue for some reason. We had some light problems, and Bob is just forever this kind of blue ghost. So that's fixed. But obviously, as well, because now we have a name and we've done it before. We had this sort of like, we had this caliber that meant that Roboteers from all over were applying because they knew what it was this time.
You established yourselves basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think everyone coming back knowing what to expect was so much less stress and more just hype, and there was so much buzz as everyone arrived for this season. Yeah.
It's kind of like the first season kind of reminded me of like not in the nicest way here. Series 8 of Robo Wars, like no one really knew what was going to come, and then Series 9, the standard just jumped forward so much, sort of thing. If you know what I mean.
And I think that was part of, if I'm honest, like I want to get this across. The issues with season 1 was we'd put it just a couple of weeks after Insomnia that you were at as well.
Yeah.
And so many people were, including myself, were exhausted.
We're building featherweights.
That we had a lot of dropouts. We had to pull a lot of strings to get enough robots to compete in the first season. And I think there was something beautiful about we had exactly 30 functioning robots on the day, which is what we needed for a show. Yeah, I think that's what's exciting about this new season is that everyone was there so prepared and the robots were just so good and everyone.
That's the dream.
Yeah, basically.
So I think the quality of fights is way up. Like I think that's the one thing everyone's so buzzed to show. Like all the Roboteers have been so patient to show this new show to you.
Yes. I mean we've seen all the whens. We'll get to a when maybe later on. Ooh. Anyway, we are here to discuss season 1. I suppose we should probably talk about the actual fights as well themselves. Heat 1 in the end was won by Captain Doom and the Doom Kid. He was just class the whole way through. Just the deadpan, the deadpan reactions, everything. But
man, his attitude, I loved it.
He was just so clinical. It was scary to watch. It was very very cool. But this Heat has the best robot in the entire series in it. It has Good Boy. Good Boy's amazing.
The goodest of boys.
The goodest boy.
And that's a great example. Good Boy, Felix brought along as a spare robot last minute for a bit of a joke, and then it ended up on the show because we had so many dropouts. And it became beloved.
Good Boy is the best boy.
You might get to see Good Boy again. You never know. Maybe.
Ooh. Maybe a quick cameo from Good Boy.
Boy.
Obviously, Captain Doom winning the Heat. I believe is the man's name Tyler. I think it is Tyler, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Tyler. Yeah.
He was just on it from the word go, wasn't he? Maybe he is part machine himself, but he was just fantastic.
Yeah. I got to see him live over this past about a month ago now. It's almost now. He came down to Orlando, and he is a masterclass driver with this robot. This D2 kit that he becomes one with this D2 kit. It's just I mean, people can say what they want about kits, but you can give somebody a kit and they'll do terrible with it possibly because they don't know how to drive the darn thing. But it was just, I mean, you can see it on the show. The fact that it's so hard to fight. There's no angle. There's no angle you can get around this thing, and that's not just the fact of the design. It's the fact that the person driving it knows how to use their tools. You know what I mean? They know how to use what was given to them, and he's just a really good driver. I don't know what else to say. It's one of those things that it's a perfect fit. And he outclassed everyone in this Heat.
he really a really important thing that people don't realize as well is he's not just bought a kit and turned up. He's he's worked on this kit for years and modified it, like the wheel guards, the different wedge attachments, and he's become one with the machine. Like he goes and dominates so many competitions because he just really knows this robot inside and out. And so does his mum. I think that was the thing.
Yeah.
His mum was there, like supporting him all the way. She was like, she'd come with a broken ankle, I think it was as well, and they weren't sure they were. I think the robot got lost in luggage as well.
Yeah, I remember that story.
Like, there's all sorts of issues there to face, apart from just coming from America to Bristol, which is like, you know, it really puts the effort in, and it really shows. I think it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite the machine. Jevan, I'm going to bring you in here. What do you remember of Heat 1? What stood out for you?
I was really excited to see Drizzle in action. They are just such an awesome looking machine. Monsoon in BattleBots really impressed me in the 2018 season. So to see this tiny little version of it very nearly do some incredibly crazy things while it was there was just great. And it didn't matter how long or short the fight was, it was always entertaining.
Yeah, Tom always likes to put on a show, doesn't he? And I think Drizzle's certainly one of those machines that puts on a show no matter what. I also like the look of Nightingale with the overhead saw.
Yes.
Very much classic dead metal vibes for me there with the way that it actuated. It was just so slick. Yeah, I mean, Captain Doom obviously dominating the heat in the end, going through to the final. I think was it Drizzle that went into the Rumble in the end?
It was.
I believe. That's right, yeah. Drizzle after face planting after 2 seconds in its first fight, ending up in the heat final, and face planting again, which is the way it's meant to be, I suppose. Move on to Heat 2.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about serious business and the Bloodshot Eye.
I mean, serious business was. I mean.
You got to enjoy new designs. Right?
Yeah, it was inventive. I like the fact that the angle of the cutting disc, instead of it being like a vert, it's a kind of like it's like a grinding sideways disc. It's very strange, and I appreciate that.
I think it wanted to be a thwackbot in a way.
Yes, it is begging to be a thwackbot, isn't it? Really, like it just.
I think the idea was it swings overhead and then saws into things. It was quite an exciting animated idea, but I think obviously it was his first ever robot, so he's been working on it actually. He's now built a version with 2 saws. I believe.
Nice.
Good.
So we might see that in February. I'm quite excited to see what he's been up to. He stuck with it, which I think is great.
Yeah. You need these crazy designs. It's all well and good, building to a high standard and building to one specific style, but you just need something outside the box every now and then. It's
Definitely.
It's all good fun. Excuse me, Futamushi as well. It was that was a thing, but it was good fun. I think it beat Drizzle, didn't it? Well, Drizzle lost.
Well, yeah, yes.
Drizzle
it's
lost
more than the
against
fact
it.
that Drizzle beat itself.
Yeah,
and Futamushi moved.
Hey, look,
it was almost a fight.
You got to take the W's where you get them, man. Sometimes you don't get that lucky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Morgan, who built Futamishi, he always goes to the extremes. So inside Futamishi is an actual drill motor, which is something like
that's featherweight standard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what featherweights use for drive, and he's using it for his Beetle, which I think is awesome. And he's kept doing that now. He keeps building versions of Futamishi that are ridiculous and overpowered and might explode, but it's beautiful,
It's all part of the game. It's all part of the game. It's all part of the game. Heat 2 had a fair bit of people who I'm actually familiar with. I obviously going into Heat 1, you your Tom Brewsters, Liz from Nightingale as well. The other guys I wasn't 100% familiar with. Yeah. Obviously, this one you can't. Snappy. Obviously, our teammate Joe.
There might be one person on this team.
Yeah. Who is Snappy? I've never heard of that person.
Yeah, Snappy. Obviously, our teammate and all-round good guy Craig Croucher with his bright neon shirt, which was it was meant to be green, wasn't it? Apparently,
safety green.
Safety green. It was neon yellow. That's very safe.
Retina destroying.
Bourbon obviously was built by the same guy who built Deadlock. Robert, I can't pronounce his name. Is it Karpinski?
I think so, yeah.
That's a good effort. Correct me if I'm wrong, Robert. I'm sorry, or Rob, if you're out there. Limpet, obviously, if you remember way back when to Series 2 of Robot Wars, you might remember John Denny's first machine, Limpet. This is the Beetleweight version, piloted by John Denny Jr.
Yep.
And Mini Spinny, which looks very familiar. Not sure where from. It looks very familiar.
It's Cherub, isn't it?
Very good.
It's gotta be.
Very good.
CD4T.
That's the one. And you've got that's piloted by Rory Charlesworth, who built Aegis. Quite an interesting heat this one was. I thought this was probably the stronger heat of the first two.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
There was quite a few good fights in there, and watching Bourbon flick Snappy around in round 2 was very exciting.
Yes.
OMG is just such a beautiful looking machine as well. Just the way that it's all put together is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Hard Knock as well looks solid.
Just got hard knocked around.
Anderson
is here.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but
I think the thing that's obvious in this heat is if you're in the Beatles scene, that a lot of these people are absolute regulars and have done many iterations of their robots, particularly Snappy and Limpet and Bourbon. They've been around since the beginning of Beatles in sort of 2015-16, so they're veterans of the scene, you might say.
And that standard kind of shows, you can see the experienced hands at work here, really. You look at Snappy, it looks quite unassuming. It's got actual hinges on the back, but it knows. Craig knows what he's doing. He's not a silly guy.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. I disagree.
Depends who you ask, really, doesn't it? He's not going to forgive us, Joe. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, that's fine. Craig, we love you, sort
of. Of course we do. Of course we love Craig. We love Craig. Limpet eventually winning the heat. John Denny's driving is just stunning.
Just masterclass again. It's just, this was after seeing these first two heats, I wouldn't have been surprised to see both Limpet and Captain Doom in the grand final against each other, a driver against a driver. That wouldn't have surprised me had that happened. That would John just. It's just I don't know how these people I really wish I could become a better driver. I've driven robots for 3 years now, and I'm still as terrible as when I started. I don't know how it's like they talk to the robots they say go here, stay away from the pit, go after I don't know. I just wish I'm just falling into my own little rut of I wish I was a better driver.
No,
but yeah, he's. But yeah, it was a really good heat. It was a really good driving heat. I think the fact that we saw both Snappy and Limpet in the final here shows how even with a big weapon, you still may not win against something that can push you better than most. So.
Yeah, and Limpet's such an equivalent of Captain Doom for the UK. They're both in the live scene. They're always coming first, if not second. They have a big trophy collection. So they were definitely, when we were looking at the lineup, we were we will be shocked if that's not the final for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Jevan, anything to add?
Just looking through the photos, Snappy is. I find it quite annoying because I designed a very similar machine and then Snappy came along and I was like, oh damn, well that's that gone.
It's very sleek and simple, isn't it?
And I just remember hearing rumblings that Mini Spinny had a different name before it was Mini Spinny.
Yeah, it was. What is it? Tiny PP, I think he called it.
Tiny PP.
No, that's not gonna work. You're gonna get demonetized faster than you start.
Yeah, that'd have been YouTube. Definitely taken all the ad revenue from Bugglebots gone. Game over.
Rory was another example of he built that robot. I think a week before the show. He was originally going to come along with those talking sea bass.
Oh my god.
He was going to bring one as a joke for a whiteboard or something, and then last minute said, "Oh, I'm building a PP3D thing. I reckon I can get it done in time." So again, pulling out the stops to make the show happen. It was so good. It's such a cool robot. It looks so legit.
Honestly, the one thing I loved about the original PP3D was the kind of the back armor, this way, all ridged and like a spine. It's got the same effects, but obviously in 3D print, or I think it's 3D print, and it just looks so nice.
But it delivered some good hits. This little guy.
It did. It was certainly a potent spinner, and it's just a shame that it got drew into kind of a nasty heat, really.
Yeah, tough pushes to face with for him, definitely. They're both really well wedge optimized against those sort of undercutters. So.
In the end, Limpet winning that heat with Snappy going into the Rumble. We'll talk about that a bit later on. Heat 3 saw quite a few recognisable faces. You might have recognised the driver of Flick from Bucky the Robot. Obviously, recently in BattleBots with Jasper. Big Tom Lloyd. He's done
a couple of shows in China too.
Yeah, I think he's done everything. He's one of only a few people that have done all three.
Yeah.
And obviously Buggle as well.
He's been on YouTube and television.
I know. Look at this guy. If you haven't seen his career build vlog, by the way, it's very funny.
Oh God!
Just go and watch that. It's brilliant.
I laughed for a solid 10 minutes after watching that. He is so naturally funny, and Dave Malls is just completely. You don't think of it when you're watching things like Robot Wars, but he's
got a wicked sense of humour, hasn't he? Yeah. He really does. Maximum Overdrive as well, brought to you by the Team Ogre Kill team at Sam Price, who was on Apex in Robot Wars. Love.
Foxic, I think.
Sorry?
And I think he did Foxic.
Oh, he was with Foxic, wasn't he? He was with Foxic, yeah.
He's
good.
definitely known for his featherweights as well. He was one of the sort of big builders of featherweights earlier on, many Axebots and stuff. But he definitely, as soon as he built this and started testing this, like at the event before this show, people were starting to get really, really nervous that I have to care about my top armor now.
It's like imagine like a mini Sawblaze and you have Maximum Overdrive. It's just so good. And I believe Rory Mangles drove it at the Euros this year.
Yeah.
I think was it fourth
on the top few.
Yeah, fourth place. Was it third or fourth place? It was certainly up there, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it's a lethal bot. There's a lot of stuff to fit in a 1.5 kilograms. I think that's the challenge with it, really.
Yeah.
Because you essentially got two weapons there. You've got the lifter arm bits that you've got to have in there as well as the saw to actually cut down. It's a really complicated thing to get right.
It just works so well.
So good.
It was so good. And then Wee-Woo as well was very impressive as well. It was just so much fun. It's a 50-50 cluster bot. It's just ridiculous how fast these things are.
Oh, so good. So half built in the Netherlands, half built in the UK. So they only met in person at the event, I believe.
That's amazing.
And their drive system that they come up for this has now become the meta for Beetles. It's known as Wee Woo Drive, and a lot of people have it in their robots now. And bear in mind, these are half the size of normal ones. Everyone's running, normal Wee Woo setup, and they're double the weight of it robots. So they are very established now.
They were so great. They were so entertaining as well. I believe the guy's name's Greg. He's just so funny. just geeing up the crowd.
He lives for good looks and shouting.
He's a good-looking chap. He's a good-looking chap.
He's the lead singer of a band normally. I think that's where it all comes from.
Fair enough. It was interesting because I believe they said there was two different build styles. You have the more kind of traditional build style that Greg brought along with Woo.
Yeah.
And then Cosmin with Wee doing something a bit different, and I think it was like slightly. I think was it machine? I can't remember.
Yeah, CNC machine.
So it's obviously very different build styles, but both working very effectively. It was very cool to see.
Yeah,
so much fun.
And of course, our new colleague, I suppose, if you like, Joe, with Rev 2.
Oh yes. Felix, welcome to the Flamingo team. But also, Felix, thank you for bringing Good Boy and Rev to Buggle. We couldn't have done the series without you.
Absolutely.
Rev is known for just being insanely. He just puts everything into the weapon motor and pretty much nothing into anything else. So often at events, you'll just see it exploding into bits across the arena. So this was a surprising one for us. He was a real underdog in this episode.
It was cool as well that you saw him at the start, very much struggling and having to work his way through the heat. I don't remember if anything else happened like that throughout the series. It was the one time where you lose your opening round, you have to come back and win the heat.
Mm-hmm.
It was very impressive as well.
And he was doing little tweaks every fight, and the robot was just getting better and better in each fight. That was what was so cool to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a nice looking thing as well. It's a bit unfortunate it couldn't run upside down in the final, which we'll get to a bit later. Yeah. But I think this episode did have for me the fight of the series.
Yes.
Because I believe because it was Maximum Overdrive and Wee Woo, I believe, was it?
That's my favourite fight.
It was just so good.
Mm-hmm.
Just the back and forth throughout the whole fight, and just Wee Woo flying around the arena like absolute nutters. It was brilliant, and it was very entertaining, and that was a proper two well-oiled teams working well together, and put on a great show, and I think it really showed in that fight.
Oh man, there's like a moment where Wii is stacked on top of a Woo in front of Overdrive and slamming into wall, and then Overdrive brings down the saw on both of them, and it's just it's like a cartoon almost.
You couldn't write it. Yeah, you couldn't write it, could you?
Yeah, so good.
It was so good. Again, Jevan, anything that you particularly stands out for you in this heat?
The biggest moment for me was just Flick ripping itself in twain. The physics behind that are just crazy, and I believe Snippers McGee had, was it a fez flying around it?
Yes, in the whiteboard episode, they added a fez, flail fez against the crab. It was beautiful.
I mean, it's a very, very clever way of doing a Crusher Gripper style thing, is to have it sort of screw itself shut. I'm not quite sure I understand how it works, but it works. So.
Mm-hmm. It did work, and I think it was very unique the way that they managed to sort it out. So, kudos to the team for trying something different.
A lot of personality, that robot, for sure.
Yeah.
And he'd only built ants before as well. He literally just sort of, again, I think he built the robot a week and a half before the show. Sent me some pictures of some scrap metal, and then a few days later, this came out of the metal. It was beautiful.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, and then we had our little Gabriel moment with Wackenstein. I didn't really get going in this this episode too.
Never
much.
really had a chance, did it? Really?
No, it had drive trouble in the first fight, I remember, and then you had the wheel fall off, and it's in the three-way. So I mean, it's a cool design. I like BugBots because they're just crazy and mad and hard to control, not only for the person driving against it, but also the driver. So I would know that from having to drive a two-wheel bot myself. So I can concur. It's a little bit difficult.
The axe head on Thwackenstein is fierce.
Mm-hmm.
It looks very chunky, doesn't it?
It does. Very. I wouldn't like to meet that in a dark alleyway.
Absolutely.
I think I've spoken with Sophie and Shane, who built it together, and I think they're planning to upgrade it to a brushless drive at some point, because at the moment it's running the normal drive motors of other Beetles, and it didn't quite have the power to sort of swing over. And I think with a bit of the wee woo better chucked in there, they'll be flailing around beautifully. And
good old wee woo.
See that.
Wee woo changing the face of Beatles forever.
Exactly. Innovation at its finest.
Dear me. We'll move on to Heat 4 then. Heat 4 had the second best robot in the series in the Berg. Obviously, we had Good Boy earlier in the series. We have the Berg is the second best robot in the series.
All right, wait a minute. With whatever goes into the Berg, it just what is it? It just doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
Win the Olympics?
I don't know, maybe.
It does what it wants.
Athlete.
It does what it wants.
Yeah, it just chooses to operate how it chooses. It doesn't have a choice.
Or at all.
Well,
I don't question it. It won the whole series.
Yeah, that was in the cut version. They had to edit that bit out because it was so graphic. They couldn't put it on YouTube. It would get taken down.
That's true. That's what all the editing time is spent on is photoshopping out Berg frame by frame.
Wait,
that's why it took so long. Makes sense.
Photoshopping all of Tim pulling.
Just like the wreckage out of the arena.
Just pulling Charlie away every single time.
I was really nervous to hear that they wanted to have this. Well, not that they wanted to, that they have this sort of personality that they're going to display on camera. But I think that is one of the things that people really got into was their charm and their character. It did come across all right, I think, on camera, luckily.
Yeah.
And they are really lovely guys, and they've been really into the sport since. This was their first Beetle as well. Again, complete newbies to the scene, and they're absolute regulars now in multiple weight classes. So
yeah, absolutely. Are.
Once you're bit, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the familiar face of Apex as well in this heat.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very exciting to hear that Chris has been scaling Apex. I know he'd done Feathers. I didn't know he'd done the Beetle Apex before, and it was equally as scary and you know, you never knew what was going to happen.
Of course, it's because like obviously, as soon as someone says Apex, you know, someone's like, "Oh, do you remember that time when?" You know,
the shivers down your spine, like, okay, are the arena walls thick enough?
Yeah, but you know, it's got that presence now. Like, you know, obviously it was a one-time thing where, you know, okay, you know, something failed and, you know, obviously carnage ensued.
Yeah.
And it never quite, you know, it's probably never going to happen again. But there's, you know, it reminds you of it. You know, just the name. You think, oh, I remember this happened. It's got that presence now. It's quite intimidating.
Yeah, people are scared when they go in the arena with it. They never know what's going to happen. I think that's quite cool to have such a prolific name for a robot.
Yeah. One robot that I found really interesting in this week was it Liam or I can never pronounce
Lem.
it.
It's pronounced lame. He deliberately had this sort of bilingual pun, I think. Really hard to make a pneumatic flipper at this smaller weight.
Yeah.
There's only been a couple that I know of in Beetle, and only one that's like ran really regularly in America. That's really cool. But so he wanted to have a go at using springs instead, winding up a spring and letting that go. And in testing, it had some real potential, but it's really hard to get that sort of stuff reliable. Like that's how Matilda, the Hexbug toy, works. If you're interested, if you have one of those, it's winding up a spring and letting it go. But doing that at 1.5 kilograms is
you need some serious springage going on there, don't you? If you're going to do that.
Yeah, you kept breaking motors. Yeah.
Obviously, the heat winner this time though was SCD, something completely different. A Melty Brain.
Yes.
Obviously, we were talking about Melty Brains earlier with Nuts. This is a Melty Brain in SCD. I don't think it's shown on camera. I can't remember if it was this version or the next version, but you couldn't really tell on camera. But I think when it spins, it has the name along the side, doesn't it?
Yeah, you can see it.
You can see it. You can see it. Yeah, it was kind of. I don't think everyone saw it when it obviously was happening at the time, but like you can see the name as it spins around, which I think is really cool. And the fact that he's managed to put in the effort to kind of, you know, put the name up through lights as it's spinning.
Not only get the robot working with whatever. I mean, I don't know if he's using OpenMelt or if he's using his own software. Getting a Melty to work is complicated. So it's just the fact that he went the extra mile with that. Come on, man. That's the Melty bots are cool, man. And this is probably one of those things where you're going to see in the lower weight classes, you'll see Melty Brain robots. You will not see a heavyweight robot on BattleBots, unfortunately, because they just don't want them there.
Why? I know.
It bothers me a little bit, but I mean, I can see. I guess I don't know.
I think this was a great example of showing how, like, because I don't think it was necessarily about the Melty stuff that made it effective. It was the chains, and I think in this case, he's really demonstrating that Melty bots can be effective. Even though this one isn't the fastest to translate, I've seen faster translating ones more recently, but like, he still demonstrates how the hell do you fight this thing? Like,
right, yeah. The whole weapon is a robot. The whole weapon is a robot. We're gonna flip that. The whole robot is a weapon. But it's throwing the whole weight limit at you, and that's really scary.
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely. Obviously, SCD going on to win the heat as well, which is obviously very impressive to see as well.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Heat 5.
Oh, don't forget Claws 2.
Claws 2.
Yeah.
Oh, big wedge energy. Big wedge energy was very sneaky. Very sneaky.
It was. the face was the most terrifying part.
the Owu.
Yeah. But Claws 2 is definitely worth mention because Fliss has become this absolutely ruthless driver. She just won. I think she came second in the featherweight, Sportsman Cup in the UK with her featherweight. So she's become this really like well-known driver in the scene now. She's doing great stuff.
Yeah. Same people who brought you Lunatic.
Yeah, that's right. And she's got one that's based on that dragon now. What's it called? The How to Train Dragon. Toothless. That's what it's called.
Toothless.
Mm-hmm. And that thing's winning loads of fights. But Claws 2 has become this tank of a robot that's really hard to kill. That's it sort of.
Yeah, which obviously is a great quality in itself. You know, if you can't lose, then or can't be knocked out or anything, that's obviously a very good skill to have.
Definitely.
It's got a good clamp on it, you know. I mean, I'm sure it's come a long way since since BuggleBots.
Yeah.
But it's a tough bot to fight, and I'm sure it's just gonna keep getting better. And the driving, from what I'm hearing, is pretty on point. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think the whole family have a beetle now each, except for I think Chris's wife. I don't think she has one, but at the last beetle event I saw, which was Battle in the Borough, everyone in the family had their own beetle. So that was.
They all love it as well, don't
they?
Bug. Yeah, they all love it. The Souries, don't they? They just love robot combat in general.
Yeah, great family.
Yeah, absolutely. Heat 5, there was some serious Robot Wars alumni in this one.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about that? Because obviously we're talking about Alex Mordew, who once piloted Firestorm and was part of that team. How did that come about?
So I think Alex had since stopping Robot Wars and Heavyweights, he'd always been into like 3D printing and just sort of exploring the tech, and he'd done some sort of outweight designs and stuff. And I think he was one of the first people when we announced we were going to do a show to get involved essentially and start showing his CAD designs. He had all these absolutely bonkers designs, and I think the funniest thing to me was he posted his Sore Loser design on like Instagram and stuff before we'd announced who was on the show and stuff, and loads of people were slating it, saying, "Oh, it's 3D printed, it's gonna get torn to pieces, it's rubbish. It looks cool, but it's not gonna work, right?"
Yep.
And I think Alex just came back to sort of show people things can be done differently from what everyone's used to, and I think that's. But yeah, he now runs. He's one of the people running the Battle in the Borough that you mentioned.
Yes.
He is like. The Beetle scene is his baby, basically. He's so involved in the Beetle scene.
It was really cool because obviously, if you remember back when we'll use Robot Wars as an example. When some of the old guys came back for Series 8, they did one series and then we're just kind of like, all right, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
It's been really nice to see Alex kind of take it, and say, okay, I actually want to be involved in this and do more of this. Yeah. Obviously, to a point now where he's helping run an event in Scotland, which is great to see.
Yeah, and that's so good.
And Sore Loser, it was spectacular.
It's such a cool little design, man. I mean, I saw it an actuating arm. I mean, but it lifts, so it's got like that Whiplash quality to it,
Yeah, that was the first thing I was about to say. It kind of reminds me very much of Whiplash. It's less of a cutter and more of a spinner, if you like, and it's just such a nice robot. It's just really nice.
It hits well. It hits well.
It certainly does. It did very well in the in Heat 5 as well. One of the other robots that really kind of stood out to me in Heat 5 was Salancer Frog.
Yeah.
Really lovely robot as well. Nicholas, I think his name is, if I remember correctly.
That's it.
Yeah. He does a lot of the artwork for a lot of teams.
That's what I was going to say. I wanted to give a huge shout out because Nick does all the Heat posters, so our fight cards, essentially, and all the logos and stuff for the show. So Nick is an absolute legend in the graphics department of the robot combat scene.
Yeah,
it is the frog department because he does these really, really tanky, froggy beetles, man. They're so good.
Yeah, as I say, he does a lot. He does a lot of work for a lot of teams. I think we've had artwork done by him before. So it's it's fantastic, and credit to him. It's a really cool robot as well. It's a Lancer Frog. Angst as well, really fun robot.
Strong axe.
Yeah, like this was a really impressive. You don't generally see axes on Beetles because it's obviously, as you mentioned, pneumatic is kind of hard to do, and gearing wise, you can't quite get a motor powered one.
Right.
But this guy managed it.
So Ralph. First of all, German, so representing the German contingent, which is great to see. Yep. He is a brushless fanatic as well, so like these really crazy motors, and he basically took half a drill motor gearbox and combined it with a massive brushless motor to do it. So as you probably see in the episode, it's got far more power than the robot can handle.
Absolutely.
And when it launches the axe, it flies in the air and does cartwheels instead of actually
absolutely bonkers.
I love it. I love it.
So good. You gotta love Angst.
Yeah.
And Ralph keeps saying this. His philosophy of robots is always just take it to the maximum with something ridiculous. So he's kept doing that, which is super cool to see. But love Angst, such a cool robot.
Absolutely.
Gotta like people that push the boundaries a little bit instead of just like, oh, this design works, let me just make this, but actually really just trying to push the boundaries, and it's
Yeah.
Axes are difficult too, because it's not only do you have to build a really strong, competent robot, but you have to drive it well. If you miss, you got to wait for a good hit. So.
Aha! There it is. Zero Gravitas as well. Good friend of yourself, Joe.
Yeah, one of the Bristol bot builders boys, as we call them. So him, Gareth, and Craig, we do the events together, and he was very involved from the beginning with Beatles as well, in the Bristol scene, that is. And Zero Gravitas is quite a different, got quite a lot of personality, bit of a chompy.
Yeah, it looks nice.
And he's iterated on it quite a lot. He's built a nice wee drive, 4-wheel drive version of it now, which drives around very nippily. So yeah,
it's someone who really likes the Spectrum quantum machines. Zero Gravitas. I really wish we could have seen more from it in this series of BuggleBots, because it is a really nice looking thing, and there aren't that many biters around, and I do like a good biter bot. So I've got major respect for Zero Gravitas.
Yeah. He's a massive fan as well of those things. I think it was inspired by the Spectre sort of family of robots.
Yeah. In an arena with a pit too, a grappler can do a grappler can do very well if driven well. So I mean that's definitely a plus in their column. It just didn't work out quite well this time.
I think against Sore Loser.
That's a tough drawing for anybody.
There, I think. Yeah, I think he hit the ceiling pretty much.
Yeah, Sore Loser certainly had some potency to it, didn't it? Speaking of beautiful, K2, the eventual winner of the heat.
Yes.
Wowee. I mean, this whole heat was kind of like, you kind of thought, okay, it looks very slick. K2's looking pretty solid here. You're probably going to be seeing that in the heat final. And what a heat final it was eventually when they fought Sore Loser. It was a great fight.
Yes.
Absolutely awesome. I think the thing about Mark, who built K2, is before Bugglebots, I think the highest he'd come in an event was 10th, but he'd always been working on K2. It started as a 2-wheel drive robot. He's just been iterating and iterating. And we like to compare Mark with K2 as the kind of Beetle equivalent of Bite Force, because he's just taken this robot and tuned it and tuned it and tuned it. And by the time this season came about, he was just it was just right dialed in for the first time, where it was really, really performing. And you could see, because we would personally, before the show had been filmed, we wouldn't have put him as one of the finalists. But he really, really proved himself, which was so cool to see.
Yeah. It was kind of like a coming of age thing. Yeah, it very much that robot was the right place at the right time for it, and it really worked. Obviously, we'll get to how it did in the final a bit later on.
Yeah, and then you got little pinwheel. Little spinny blade.
Yeah, it was a tough heat for it to get driven to, really.
Yeah. It really couldn't show off what it could have done.
Absolutely. Which left us with our 5 finalists, which were Captain Doom, Limpet, Rev2, SCD, and K2. But of course, obviously taking, I'm sure, a little bit of inspiration from Series 10. You have to have a rumble in there.
How dare you?
You have to have a rumble in there. And the rumble was between all the losing heat finalists. So somehow Drizzle, if you'd have said in the first episode, after watching the first fight, Drizzle falling flat on his face, you would have thought, heat finalist. Wouldn't have thought it really, would you? But it made it there. Snappy, maximum ogre drive, which a lot of people thought very unlucky not to be there. Claws 2 and Sore Loser, and Snappy coming out on top in the end in that fight. It was kind of interesting because it was slowly dying towards the end. I think he lost a wheel, didn't he, Craig?
So he got the LED strip had come loose.
Right. Like on that first hit with Drizzle, it seems that it just came clean.
So his bling was his downfall.
Oh, it gets caught in the wheels.
The neons under the wheels.
Yeah, the caliber of robots in this heat, I think it could have gone anyway when it started, and just seeing the chaos ensuing, where you see Ogre Drive soaring Sore Loser in the corner, and he actually cuts the receiver in half, I think, which was pretty cool. And then you've got Drizzle smashing Snappy, and it's sort of head flinging around, and it really looked like it was going to be Claus's match. I think that one.
Yeah,
definitely. it got grips on Snappy, was feeding it to Ogre Drive, and
Which
and Claws knocked out Ogre Drive. That was the upset, wasn't it? Really, like that was really unexpected. Like,
if we're gonna put money on someone to win the fight, like Claws 2 was probably the one you'd think, it's probably gonna get munched up by the bigger machines in there. But the driving again, as you say, very very strong.
Yeah, but it's not
from Claws 2.
rushing type. She's just very very precise. She's like very restrained. Like she won't zoom around attacking people. She'll like wait for the moment to strike and then she'll get people. It's really interesting style of driving.
But it works clearly. It works very well. Until right at the end, just a bit of misjudging and Snappy getting the win.
Yeah, and Tom just kind of hanging out in the middle of the arena, just waiting for somebody to come to him.
just hoping that someone comes close. Yeah. One of those unfortunate things, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Drizzle was a little bit of a glass cannon in this series. I think that's fair.
Yeah,
I think he knew that too.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better since then. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, if you've seen any of the live scene stuff, he's really tuned in all the issues he was having with Drizzle. And the best bit is Drizzle and Monsoon are sort of iterating on each other. So you'll see something he does with Monsoon and it will come to Drizzle, and then he'll do something with Drizzle, and then it will come back to Monsoon.
Like the disc, for example.
Yeah, and he's been doing with forks and the wedges. Like, there's a load of stuff in there where they're inspired from each other, which is, I think, is really cool. To sort of prove legitimacy as Beatles as a place to build robots, Like, the stuff that works here can work on BattleBots. I think that's really cool.
The scalability's there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, which brings us to the final. Our final 6: Captain Dune, Limpet, Snappy, Rev 2, SCD, and K2. Going into this, I didn't know who won. I didn't know who won season 1. Obviously, I could have asked Joe or Craig or whoever who won, but I had no idea. I thought, I'll go into it blind. We'll find out as the show goes on.
Right.
And watching K2 get to the victory it ended up getting was kind of, but not in the way you kind of thought it was going to. If you catch my drift, like it wasn't like dominant the whole way through. It was made to work for it. Which I think was quite good.
Its first fight against Captain Doom.
Yeah,
it was a test.
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to be any fight against Captain Doom is going to be a test. But it wasn't a straightforward K2 just going to walk through and win the championship. It was they had to earn their stripes.
Props for Captain Doom for technically beating the the fight.
Yeah, being the one to beat them.
Yep.
Just didn't work out quite in the end for Captain Doom to take home the trophy. Which it would have been nice for Tyler to take home the big pot, I suppose, but wasn't meant to be. The big exactly.
Yeah.
Those great.
You got to see more expert driving as well in another fight with Limpet and SCD, showing that again, even if you got a super powerful weapon, if you just get outdriven, it really could be your downfall. And that's kind of like what happened in that fight. And John Denny Jr.'s just expertise with that robot. It's just incredible. It's got great survivability.
Yeah. That it was. I think his wedge was already kind of half knocked off at that point by SCD for the massive hits. But it was like that lance, which is a really interesting thing. I heard this great conversation during this series 2 filming between some international teams that wow, all these UK people are starting to use lances on their robots, and it's really effective. I don't know why none of us do it, because it's like a really good keep away stick, and then it also helps
guide people.
Sort of guide SCD into the pit there. It's so cool, right? Like, that's such controlled driving.
It's such a weird, interesting meta that's kind of evolved recently as well. Like you wouldn't really have thought a lance would be that effective, but it really does work.
Yeah, a lot of new Beetles have been built this year have got lances now, and it's because it's becoming this sort of UK style of Beetle. If you're doing a push or a
you guys got a bunch of castles over there, so I guess
the medieval stuff is coming back.
Absolutely. Jevan, I'm going to bring you in here. Like, obviously, coming into the grand final, who did you think was kind of going to walk away with the trophy? Was it obvious to you, or?
No, not at all. I was really of the belief that it was going to go to a spinner, so I think that was more me hoping than anything. I'm not the biggest Wedge fan. I think this series had turned me very slightly because they were just so well driven in the heats. So yeah, part of me was really hoping that Snappy would have that real Cinderella moment and get all the way through and win it all. Rev 2 was brilliant. SCD, I thought maybe not. K2, I mean, I couldn't predict what they were going to do next. They were just winning left, right, and centre, really. And yeah, it was really, really tough for them, as you said earlier. So yeah, it was for me a really open field. No way of telling who could have taken it, which made it even better, really, because it was exciting all the way through.
Yeah, there was no obvious. At no point there was like an obvious standout winner. It could have gone any way at any point. You know, which was very exciting as well. I think that pretty much wraps up season 1 of BuggleBots.
Just watching the final again, just remembering that it was so tense.
Yeah, it was not, you know, it wasn't a moment where you kind of thought, okay, this is an obvious winner, but like, you know, there was no foregone conclusions. It was really strong throughout, and I think the final and you know, the specials coming on later on were just good fun.
Yeah,
and it
massive props to getting everything together and getting all these people
organized
so soon, and in the end, I know we said it in the beginning, but getting such a nice product in the end for the first time around. I'm sure clearly this beats Robot Wars Series 1. This beats, I mean, like a start, you know, like a good foundation to build on, and I can only hope it improves for Series 2, and I can hope to see even more carnage, and you know, I just hope this is like a kickstart, you know, for you guys, because I know this must be tough to produce. So I know you guys, it's not like a television crew, you know what I mean, where you got like 50, 100 people all working on the show, and you have endless amounts of money and all this stuff. I know it must be difficult to you know, like to find the strength to continue, because I know you've been probably slaving like crazy over editing and stuff like that this first show, and you've been I just want to thank you personally for giving us some
on behalf of the community,
some really good entertainment, honestly. Yeah.
Thank you, and props to everyone who's been involved in it. You know, it's a massive team effort. Like everyone from the judges to the refs, the commentators, to the hosts, and then the whole film crew, and then there's there's 3 or 4 of us who just have a few months on our own in computers,
just slaving away. Yeah, absolutely, and you know, again, we can't wait for the next season. So thank you for putting up another one for us to do.
Yeah.
So
I'm really glad that you appreciate. I'm glad it's come across. I had no idea. Basically, we had no idea how it was going to turn out. So. I think particularly the grand final episode, you guys picked up on what the vibe was like there, which was everyone was super amped about this and no one knew who was going to win. So the audience, even though it was, you know, a very small audience, the hype levels for the grand final in particular with the judges' decision and stuff was just so electric and so special. I wish I could go back to that moment in particular. That was so magical.
Fantastic. But there is one more question we must ask. Joe, obviously everyone at this point who's been involved with the show and you know, just general people online, you know, it is a very popular question. The question is when? When